Hello, today our lesson objective is to say I can classify triangles and find missing angles by using properties of triangles. At the end of the day, we can find the value of y in a situation like so. But before we get there, we have to go through some classification of angles and learn a lot more about angles. Um, this type of angle right here we will call an obtuse triangle. An obtuse triangle is any triangle that has one obtuse angle. If there were two obtuse angles, it would not form a triangle. Over here, we call this a right triangle because it has exactly one right angle. Now, there are some other angles. This one doesn't have any right angles or obtuse angles, so we'll call that an acute triangle. An acute triangle has three acute angles. And if we have all of these angles being the same size, that's what that little red arc means, we call those equal angular triangles. Hopefully you know equa stands for equal and angular standing for angles. So hopefully you can break this down if you see it on a test. If you don't remember the term exactly, hopefully you'll say equa, that's equal, angles, and so on. Now, equal angular triangle is a triangle with three congruent acute angles. Now this one, instead of having equal angles, has three equal sides, so we call that equilateral. Lateral meaning sides, and those have three sides. Now if none of the sides are equal, we call that a scalene triangle, because it has no congruent sides. However, if you have two sides being congruent, we call that an isosceles triangle because it has at least two congruent sides. Now there's something we need to know about isosceles triangles, and it's the angles across from these congruent sides are going to be congruent. So this angle and that angle are going to be congruent. This angle here we call it the vertex. That's the vertex. And these other ones we call base angles. And those are base angles. Here and here. Now, notice the definition says at least two congruent sides. So if it has three congruent sides, it would also be isosceles. And here, the base angles in an isosceles triangle will always be the same. Now here are some examples. So we want to name these four triangles. So take a second, pause the video, and name them. And once you think you have the names, start it back up. Hopefully you're done. This one is acute because they're all less than 90. This one is a right triangle because there's one 90-degree angle. This one is obtuse because it has one obtuse angle. And this triangle is equiangular, but if you put acute, that would be correct as well, because it fits into both categories. Now, I want you to look at these triangles, angle PQS, QSR, and PQR. Pause the video and see if you can name these triangles. Hopefully you're done. And PQS is a right triangle, as is QSR, because both these are 90 degrees. However, PQR is going to be obtuse because these add up to more than 90 degrees. Now in this situation, we want to classify this as scalene, equilateral, or isosceles. Since it has two sides the same, we know that this has to be an isosceles triangle. Now to find the two measures here, what we're going to do is take 180 minus 40. So we know these two have to add up to 140 degrees because all three of these angles add up to 180. So now if we divide that by 2, we'll get, ooh, that's a mistake on my part, 70 here and 70 here. Right, moving on. Now take a second and try to find the measure of each angle in this situation. When you think you have it, and this thing we need to know is AD. is congruent to BD, which is congruent to BC. So since these two are congruent, angle 3 has to be 75, because those would be the base angles. In this other triangle, these two sides are congruent, so the angles opposite would be 33 and 33. Alright, so to find angle 4, I add these up to get 150. 180 minus 150 leaves us with 30. Angle 2, we would add these two up to get 66, subtract from 180, and we would get 114. Alright, hopefully that made sense. Now remember the properties of a triangle. The sum of the interior angles of a triangle are always 180, and the base angles of an isosceles triangle are congruent. That's all we've learned so far. Now, we need to learn the difference between an interior angle and an exterior angle. So these 20 and 145 are interior angles because they're inside of our triangle. The exterior angle would occur if we continued the side out, and I took and found this angle out here. Since these would be a linear pair, this would be 160 because they add up to 180. Or this one would be 35 because those add up to 180. To find this one up here, we would add those together to get 165. Subtract that from 180, and this will be 15. And I subtract that from 180 to get 165. Now when you do this, to find this angle, you add them up and subtract from 180 to get 15. But then when I subtract that from 180, hopefully you notice that I got 165, which was these two added together. So there's a rule with our exterior angle. Is our exterior angle, let's take for instance 160. That is the other two interior angles added up. And that's going to happen every time in a triangle. So our rule here is the exterior angle theorem. An exterior angle of a given triangle is equal to the two remote interior angles of the triangle. So angle 4 is equal to 1 plus 3. This word remote interior that's the interiors that are far away from that exterior angle. Alright, now let's do some problems. If this is 78, the two remote interiors have to add up to that. So what number plus 38 will give us 78? Hopefully you're saying 40. If I know these two remote interiors, I can just add them to get my value for x. So that is going to be 60 degrees. Now, if I want to use this theorem to find the value of x, I know 2x plus 1x will equal 138. So 2x plus x equals 138. So I add them to get 3x equals 138. Divide by 3, and that's going to be, what, 46? Yeah, good. I did my mental math, right? Now this is our success criteria for the day. This is what we were hoping to get at. And 3y, oh, I don't want to get to that yet. So 3y plus 10 is going to equal these two added up. So 3y plus 10 is going to equal 95 plus y minus 5. So now I subtract y on both sides. So I have 2y plus 10 is equal to 95 minus 5, which is just 90. So now I subtract 10 on both sides, so 2y is equal to 80. Subtract by, or divide by 2, and y is equal to 40. So once I have that, I can plug it back into my equation. 40 minus 5 will be 35. And 3 times 40 is 120, plus 10 is 130. Hopefully those went well for you, and you can do this homework. Good luck.